The Codex Giga, also known as the Devil's Bible, due to the large illustration of the devil on the inside of the giant book. It is also connected to the legend surrounding its creation. It is largely thought to have been created in the early 12th century in the Benedictine monastery of Bodlajica in Bohemia. According to legend, the Codex was created by a character known as Herman the Recluse in the Benedictine monastery near Chirdim in the Czech Republic. The monastery was destroyed sometime in the 15th century during the Hussite Revolution. The Codex was thankfully rescued and taken to the Benedictine monastery in Břevnov. From 1477 to 1593, it was kept in the library of a monastery until it was taken to Prague in 1594 to form part of the collections of the Emperor Rudolf II. In 1648, it was taken as war booty by the Swedish army. In 1697, it would escape destruction again when a fierce fire broke out at the royal castle in Stockholm, subsequently destroying the royal library. The Codex was rescued from the flames by being thrown from a window. According to the vicar, Johan Erikssons, the Codex landed on a bystander, injuring him quite badly. In September 2007, after 359 years of changing hands in numerous ways, the Codex Giga was returned to the National Library in Stockholm. But what makes the Codex particularly special and worthy of further investigation are the characteristics within the writings of this enormous book, which astonishingly support the story of it being created in just one sitting. A National Geographic documentary included interviews with manuscript experts who argued that certain evidence, in particular the handwriting analysis and the long-standing credit to Herman Inclusus, aka Herman the Recluse, indicate the manuscript was indeed, somehow, the work of just one scribe. According to the historical legend, which was already academically recorded by the Middle Age, the scribe was a monk who broke his monastic vows and was sentenced to be walled up alive. In order to avoid this harsh penalty, he promised to create, in one night, a book to glorify the monastery forever. This book would include all human knowledge. Near midnight, he became sure that he could not complete this task alone, so he made a special prayer, not addressed to God, but to the fallen angel Lucifer, asking him to help finish the book in exchange for the monk's soul. The devil would accept this deal. Completing the rest of the manuscript, the monk would add the devil's picture out of gratitude for his help. Many specialists within the area of writing, forensic analysis, and also numerous replication attempts have indicated that the level of uniformity within the writings lean towards the impossible. Not only does it strongly indicate that the book was created in just one sitting, but is perfectly scribed throughout, a feat considered to be beyond that of human capabilities. The analysis also shown that the writings alone, if written by one person, would take over 5 years to complete, with the additional illustrations adding another 20. Yet it must be noted, it has been concluded on many occasions that no mere mortal is capable of such uniform writings within this time period. There would have inevitably been some form of evolution within the style. Of course, it must be remembered, although there is a highly compelling story attached to the origins of this giant book, its creation still largely remains a mystery. How big would you have to be for it to comfortably rest in one's lap? What sort of person, if of course it was a person, could have written the Codex Giga? And how did they write it? It is most certainly one of the world's most mysterious books.
As far as ancient, mystical, or otherwise forbidden books go, most people are quick to think about tomes such as the Necronomicon, or perhaps some Kabbalistic texts that remain shrouded in mystery and intrigue. But a work that appears to be more commonly overlooked is one that brands itself with a more sinister and brazen title. A work so cryptically mysterious that the Bohemian monasteries where it was penned deemed it as cursed, and its author as a conspirator with Satan. It would become to be known as the Codex Giga, but because of its seemingly dark origins and eerie depictions, not to mention its monstrous size, the book would quickly earn its moniker as the Devil's Bible. The legendary book is most famous for some very distinct features. First of all is its abnormal size, not just the page count, but its actual physical form. It is known to be the largest medieval manuscript in the world, taking more than 160 animal skins to construct, and was so heavy, nearly 80 kilograms, that when it was found, took 2 people to lift it. The book itself measured 36 inches by 20 inches wide, and is almost 9 inches thick, a book so encumbering that even opening the damn thing and turning its pages is thought to be a hassle in itself. It's also famous for the strange and creepy illustrations of the devil that feature throughout the book, though not the typical red devil with horns that we're used to seeing, but something far more weird and eerie. In today's episode, we'll aim to dissect some of the dark legends surrounding this elusive book, and understand more about what this Devil's Bible is really about, and why it was crafted in the first place. According to legends, the book was written by a 13th century monk known as Herman the Recluse in the Benedictine monastery of the Czech Republic. Little is known about this Herman the Recluse, but the legend behind his involvement tells us that he was about to be executed, condemned to be walled up alive and starved to death. But in an effort to save his own skin, he convinced the abbot, the head of the monks, to spare his life if he could write a book that contained all earthly knowledge as well as a testament to glorify the monastery itself. Tantalized by this suggestion, the abbot agreed to these terms, but on one condition. Herman the Recluse would need to complete the book in a single night. Wasting no time, Herman wrote his heart out until the hour of midnight, whereby he conceded it would not be possible to complete such a work in a single session. Well, at least not by mortal means anyway. Therefore, legends tell us that he conspired with the devil and sold his soul in exchange for the ability to finish the promised work, that which would become known as the Codex Giga. The devil was thought to live up to his end of the bargain, and the giant book was said to have been completed by Herman in a single night. To show the Lord of Hell his gratitude, Herman created detailed illustrations of what is perceived to be the devil and featured them prominently throughout the book, evidently none too shy about his clandestine deal, and if anything, quite proud of his partnership with Satan. In later tests to recreate the Codex Giga, it is estimated that it would take an individual 20 years of non-stop writing to complete, and that's without the creepy illustrations. Little else is known about the origin of this bewildering book, nor the monk who may have been responsible for it. Many who have studied the book have come to the conclusion that it was indeed penned by one individual author, given the uniformity of the handwriting. The monastery in which it was thought to have been created was destroyed sometime in the 15th century in the Bohemian Wars, and with it went the secrets that might have shed more light on the nature of the book. Whilst the book itself was remarkably preserved, records in the book end in 1229, indicating that the book was completed in the 13th century, before being moved about. Again, quite extraordinary considering its colossal size. We know that the Codex was moved from monastery to monastery within Bohemia, before coming to rest in Prague nearly 200 years later, where it formed part of Emperor Rudolf II's collection. By 1648, at the conclusion of the 30 Years' War, the collection was taken by a Swedish army as a spoil of war, where it would wind up in the Swedish Royal Library in Stockholm. An interesting account of the book exists in 1697, where a fire broke out in the Royal Library, causing severe damage to the building and the other works. In an effort to save the Codex from the flames, it was thrown out of the window, where it actually landed on someone, injuring them. Furthermore, it is believed that during its unceremonious rescuing, some of its pages were torn from the binding and remain lost to this day. But you may be wondering, beside the illustration of the devil and the devil's supposed contribution to the book's completion, what exactly makes this the Devil's Bible? Well, you may be disappointed, or perhaps relieved, to learn that there are no apparent words of Satan, nor any dark or evil sentiments contained within the book. In fact, it would seem that Herman the Recluse did not include any new material beyond the devil illustrations that would fulfill his earlier promise to the abbot, that he would incorporate all earthly knowledge and glorify the monastery. Instead, it would appear that Herman the Recluse merely wrote out the Vulgate Bible, both the Old and New Testaments, as well as other popular medieval works, including Flavius Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews, which was a history of the Jewish people, and his work known as the Jewish War, a historical account of the early Jewish-Roman wars. Also included in the Codex is Isidore of Seville's Etymology, a diverse work by the Christian bishops' views on earth, the cosmos, war, religion, and the hierarchy of angels and saints. There is also the inclusion of the Chronicle of Cosmos of Prague, a work by the Bohemian historian himself that details the creation of the world and the inception of Christianity in Prague. Amongst these works can also be found medical entries, none the least being 2 medical journals by the physician Constantine the African. Smaller texts, including writings on exorcisms, supposed magic rituals, and a calendar containing a list of saints and notable Bohemian persons, can also be found within the Codex's pages. So as far as being a Devil's Bible, it's more of a compendium of what Herman the Recluse probably believed were the best sources of earthly knowledge at the time. In a way, it doesn't seem like he was trying to propose any new ideas, but instead perhaps makes this knowledge more accessible by compiling it all into one place. Of course, one might say he made it even more inaccessible given the book's eventual size, a book that, as we've mentioned, was ridiculous to behold in the first place. The binding itself was made of wooden boards, covered in leather, and actually had metal guards and fittings, the sort of things you might expect to find on a shield or a piece of armour. We also know that it was composed of 320 leaves of animal skin, 160 of these being from donkeys. I suppose, in a way, the Codex kinda lives up to its insidious reputation, given how many animals were killed in order for it to be produced. Other legends surround the missing 10 pages that some report were torn out during the book's rescue from the fires, where it is thought by some that these contained forbidden knowledge by the devil, and so were removed by the monastery. Perhaps the most compelling feature about the Codex Gigas is the repeated appearances of these ominous devil drawings. Here the devil is depicted as a large and frightful figure that embodies the entirety of hell. He is shown with claws, red-tipped horns, small beady eyes, and a sickly green head. 2 long red tongues can also be seen protruding from his mouth. We can see that he appears to be squatting between 2 large structures, and wears a loincloth, though the meaning and symbolism behind this can be interpreted in a number of different ways. Some see the material of the loincloth as ermine, a material reserved for the royalty at the time, and thus may have been a nod by Herman the Recluse to Satan as royalty, or the Prince of Darkness. Now, you might be thinking that illustrations of the devil weren't exactly a profound thing in the Middle Ages, considering many artists chose to draw him. But his appearance in this seemingly religious-inspired book, by a monk no less, just seems random, and if not, provoking of curiosity. Was this a jab by Herman the Recluse against the monastery? Or was he trying to convey some kind of message that he wasn't able to speak of or put into words? Or had the devil really helped him complete the manuscript in a single night, thus sparing his life, and that these depictions were Herman's way of recognizing the devil as his saviour? In these depictions, meanwhile, an adjacent page sees a full portrait of the heavenly city, that which is depicted by tiers of buildings and towers. In this art piece, I imagine that it was drawn to inspire hope and peace of where one might find themselves if they were righteous. As it is featured beside the devil portrait, perhaps the two pieces were meant to be viewed simultaneously, so as to show the contrast between good and evil. By this, the illustration of the devil becomes not so much a celebration of his wickedness, but instead a warning. But let me know your thoughts on this Devil's Bible in the comments below, and what you think about this gigantic, supposedly cursed and evil book. Do you think that the legends are true, and that this Herman the Recluse completed the book with the aid of the devil? Or was the compilation of this book just merely one lone monk's hobby over a 25-year period?